I'm doing something a little bit new on the podcast. I'm doing a remote podcast session with an old high school buddy of mine, and he's running for Washington State Senate in 2026, my friend, Chris Bloomquist. I think the thing I'm most excited about is just to kind of hear about his journey, how he got here, why he decided to run, and what he hopes his platform can provide for his constituents in Washington State. If we're going to change the world, we have to change our perspective. The further away you are from something, the easier it is for us to be able to point fingers and judge. But you get closer and you start to realize those gaps, those questions that you had that you didn't ask, start to get answered. You're like, oh, that's the reason why people do stuff. It's because of this. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, so I really hope you guys tune in and make sure you leave some comments on all platforms, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. All right, man. Sorry, I was down here and ready, and I was on and everything, but I had to run upstairs real quick and get my AirPods because my headphones here were being kind of weird. And anyway, what's up, man?
It is a happy post-election day. It was a pretty strong Democratic sweep in the national election, so that's relevant in a sense because I am in politics now, and B, I just did my first stump speech in front of the Washington State 32nd Democratic District, and everyone was very happy about the results. And then they're like, "Who's this new Chris Bloomquist guy?" So here we are.
Things don't just happen overnight. Change happens generationally.
Absolutely. By the way, to that point, before you move on, have you ever seen the Electoral College map from like the last 75 years?
No.
You and your listeners should take a look. It's mind-blowing. Texas was deep blue. Yeah. Most of the South in the 40s and 50s, deep blue. It was the Southern Democrats. And then it completely flipped basically in our last generation. So, progress and change are slow, but it's also dramatic when you look at the lens of, well, what about the last 20 years, 40 years? You don't think things change, and things are always this way. No, they're not. You have to look at history and look at history repeats itself in many ways too, and you have to look at all that stuff to really have a wiser view of how things work.
It's funny you said that, because I think as I go back and I look at what was happening in the 40s and the 50s, well, the reason why things probably flipped, and this is me just guessing, but the civil rights.
Absolutely.
So the working class and the little guy was very much Democratic. They were blue,
right.
Like Texas. So poor Texas, rural Texas, they were blue in the 40s and 50s.
Oil and gas workers, by the way.
Right. And
coal miners in Pennsylvania,
a lot of those people that were represented that were, Democrat, the Republicans were really about commerce and corporations and let's not let the government do it. Let's let the private sector do it. And what Democrats found out was deregulation. And what the Democrats found out back then was, well, yeah, we don't mind public sector, but you also have to rein them in, because what are they going to do? They're going to hurt our environment. They're going to build things that fall down because there's no regulation on what they can and can't.
Without regulation is just unmitigated greed is what it is.
And then what happened was the civil rights came in there, and when civil rights decided we're gonna tether ourselves to the working class, we are we're black and brown folk, we're immigrants.
That's right.
We want the right to vote. We want the right to work. We want the right to have all the same rights that you folks have.
Not more rights, the same rights.
The same rights, exactly. But here's the problem.
That's still true today.
So then what happened was the white working class decided we don't want to be associated with that. So we're going to go over to, because the Republicans said, come over here. We're going to protect you. We're going to protect you. Come over here with us. You vote with us. And we'll make sure that brown and black and women and immigrants don't take your cookie.
Vilifying the other.
Exactly.
The Republican Party has mastered vilifying the other.
Correct. So
and we're all the other, unless you're Native American. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, no, we are the. But understanding where we came from helps us understand, or helps us know where we should go. so that we don't
Absolutely. And if you think
repeat
about,
those problems.
my mind's going on this chat is so interesting. If you think about why is the United States first and foremost such an economic powerhouse? We can talk about culture and we talk about innovation, but it all does start with money. Why are we such an economic powerhouse as a, quite frankly, very young country? We're still, several hundred years old. We're not thousands of years old like other countries, right? So in many ways, we're still in our, I'll call it our teen years as a country. Well, okay, so first of all, slavery, free labor. Yeah, that makes the economy run well. We don't have to pay anyone. That's awful, but it's a fact. So slavery powered our economy. Then mass genocide of Native American peoples, where we say, oh, it's our land now. So you have free land. Okay, that makes economic prosperity, and then hide it under the guise of what's the not the the divine, almost the divine thought that Christianity added to this of like,
Right.
we're supposed to go coast to coast and it's divine
Yep.
intervention, that this is, manifest destiny. That whole concept is
Yeah.
basically just justifying genocide. It's disgusting. And we were
Disgusting.
taught that.
I
We were
agree.
taught hatred and
Yep.
and making it validated. So there's the genocide of the Native American peoples. Then what have you had in our lifetimes, let's say in the last, so one event in between I would say is World War II. Wars, sadly, create economic prosperity. The war machines of World War II, of Korean War, what happens? We have to build a bunch of planes and manufacture stuff, so we become this manufacturing powerhouse. But it's, it's a righteous cause to kill the Nazis, but it's still war. So that economic engine's driven there. And then, so it's war. And then you've got, after that, what do you have in modern times? Well, you have immigrant labor. You would talk about immigrants stealing our jobs. Well, how many young white males want to work in a slaughterhouse
Right.
or work
Pick strawberries. Yep.
or work on the top of a wind turbine? Like the
That's right.
dangerous jobs? What happens? Immigrant people take the worst, most necessary jobs, and it's not slavery, but it's not equitable either, because believe me,
Right.
we want
Yeah.
to talk about,
Yeah.
all these problems with that they're not W-2 employees. They don't get benefits. They're
Right.
not treated as the same as legitimate Americans. You will go on this whole
Right.
tangent of like, well, they came here, they got to act like us. Well, guess what? They don't have the ability to be taken in as general
Right.
citizens because our
Yep.
system is broken. So all of our economic prowess, when you look at this, is driven by, and this is where my mind lands today. Forget the red and blue BS. It's rich versus poor. It is the people in power versus everyone else. And if we really want to have justice, economic justice, climate justice, educational justice, justice of all kinds, it starts with people like you and I, the middle class, being in community with each other, speaking these truths, living these truths, sharing them with our children so they know the truths, and then living in goodness and in equity, which is why I'm running for office, by the way.
Do you know what the biggest? I agree with everything you said, and I think everything you said is poignant and it's prescient and all. You know what the biggest fuck you, and we can curse on this podcast, by the way. The biggest fuck you that I have seen from this administration or from the right was today. We're in a government shutdown. There are kids that are going to go hungry, or at least if they don't get hungry, they're going to have to scrounge, right, for food. People are going to have to go to food banks, and they're going to have to do things that they shouldn't have to do.
To the food pantry today.
And they're going to have to give up their integrity and their not their integrity. That's the wrong word. They're going to have to give up sort of this. What does it feel like when you have to get in a line and get food? That's
humiliating.
Humiliating. Thank you. That's the word. They have to humiliate themselves to stand in line to get a handout, right? That makes them feel like they get a handout, right? In otherwise normal circumstances, they wouldn't have to do that. But the biggest fuck you, and I'm glad that we had a good election last night, but when I saw that Elon Musk over the next 10 years will become a trillionaire.
First ever
that
trillionaire,
news
that's
broke.
right.
That news broke today after this historic election, in the middle of a shutdown. And people are not even going to pay attention to that. A
By the way,
trillionaire. And by the way, he's also an immigrant. So he's a white immigrant from Africa who is going to be, Elon Musk is going to be a trillionaire in 10 years in the middle, and this is announced in the middle of a historic government shutdown where people are standing in food lines. This isn't a war. There wasn't a hurricane or a tornado or a natural disaster.
There's a war on the poor.
Right. So that to me, I think is the biggest travesty. Like you just said, it is rich versus poor, and the middle almost doesn't exist anymore. They've almost sort of just joined the poor because the rich is so rich.
Up. The middle's going down, believe me.
Right. Right.
If you Google this is a quick Google, guys. What % of people on SNAP work? If you had to guess, I just looked it up, so you didn't. But what % of people work that are on SNAP benefits? What would
like 85% of them, or
70%. 70%. So the whole idea of it's lazy people on welfare and blah blah blah. That's utter bunk.
And I think that 70% number I think is a full-time number, and I think there's 85% of people that at least have part-time work or get some sort of an income.
People are trying to work and cannot earn enough income with the jobs they have and still need assistance because everything is so damn expensive.
A lot of the people that 70%, a lot are single mothers. A lot of them are, Black women with educations, but they're working in jobs like
social worker, which we badly need.
Social
but don't
worker,
pay enough.
Exactly.
Teachers,
100%.
preschool, care providers.
It's
things that we need the most to make humanity good. We pay the least.
In the
meantime, I live in Seattle, where some programmer can make $300,000 a year to make code to make us more addicted to social media. It's disgusting.
Yep. I mean, I don't have a problem with certain parts of capitalism. I do think that part of that has made us safe in certain, because, places like China, Russia, places, the despots of the world won't necessarily attack us because we buy their stuff and we have value. They don't want to, so certain parts of capitalism protect us in a certain way. Because look, now I don't want to, I'm not defending it completely, but I do think that there are certain levels of capitalism that I'm okay with. Now, the problem is we have been living in a socialist, we are already a socialist society for the top, 10% of income earners. Because when banks go down, when airlines go down, what do? We bail them out with our tax dollars. When farmers can't sell their crops because of these stupid tariffs, our tax dollars
it's not pure capitalism. It's propped up by government and by taxpayers.
Correct. And so this idea that Mamdani is going to be a communist, they don't understand what communism versus socialist is. They have no idea.
Because economic, communism is governmental. These are different concepts. They are not
completely different concepts. They're not. They but it makes these people, because Cuba, Venezuela, they use these buzzwords that scare people, and it's all just a big trick to make you afraid. But Chris, I real quick, guys, I want to introduce Chris. He's a high school buddy of mine, Chris Bloomquist, from Norfolk, Nebraska, went to Norfolk Catholic. This guy, now I don't know if this is still true, but he holds several cross-country records. His name is up on the board still to this day. I think I'm still in the top 10, Chad. Listen, he used to be number one across the board for up until maybe the 2010s. This guy's an unbelievable runner still to this day, stays in great shape. And what I love the most, he's actually making his most important run of his life, and he's running for state senate
in Washington. Yeah.
State representative in Washington. Now, is it the state senate or the state house, or?
So it'd be the House. It's basically elections just happened in Washington on Wednesday or Tuesday rather, but this is for the next election cycle. But I'm getting an early jump on it for the 2026 election. Yeah,
I think that the modern day Christian, depending upon, especially evangelical, I don't think they really actually have read or understand the teachings of Christ.
Well,
if they did,
there's a whole thing about there's a whole thing about the bastardization of basically Christian nationalism, right? And James Tallarico, if you guys aren't familiar with him, you should really follow him.
Unbelievable.
He's a
Unbelievable.
yeah, really inspiring guy.
I
Me
think he could be
personally,
the future of our party. Yeah.
could be next president at some point. I mean,
Yeah.
he basically talks about faith really from a humanitarian standpoint. And what I would encourage anyone that hasn't heard of this guy, so he's a Texas Democrat. He's going for Senate, and what he talks about is basically the golden rule stuff. It's not about anti like science isn't against God or the other isn't vilified. It's Christianity, when you boil it down, is supposed to be about the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. Period.
Right.
Full stop.
Period.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. And if you look at some of the comments on his videos, and especially for any Republican voters that I respect, that if you want to say, well, I'm not going to listen to a Democrat, I challenge you to listen to him and look at all the comments, because most of the people that like him are not Christian, which would tell you a lot about how open-minded and empathetic he is. And I'm bringing it up because it leads to a broader discussion of what is the number one thing that we suffer from in society right now is a lack of empathy.
Yep.
For the other. And tribalism has never been more stark and more on the nose. I mean, you look at what Facebook does to us, and I will admit I've been a part of this problem, and I've since changed my ways. But Facebook, LinkedIn, most social media that is supposedly designed to bring us together does the exact opposite. It puts us into our tribe so we consume more liberal content, more conservative content, more content but it's content, which, by the way, gets fractured into news and fact, which is not always the case. So you need to really look at your sources, and we get further and further and further and further and further and further apart. And
it's all by design. All by design.
It's by design, because if we're eating ourselves alive over a hatred and tribalism, then we're too busy to look up and say, oh, there's like 10 people in the world that own all of the media, all of the wealth, all of our behaviors, and it's really everyone else against like 10 really disgustingly filthy rich men that have no moral compass and are incentivized and paid for us to hate each other.
Right. It's their business.
The business of hatred is very valuable.
I don't like to equate anything to really heinous acts. Like, I don't equate things to the Holocaust. I don't equate things to slavery, but this whole idea, everything you just touched on right there, reminds me of these 10 people they've corralled us into the pin, and we're running around with,
the cage match.
Exactly. And it might not be slavery, but they are getting mega, ultra, ridiculously rich and powerful, inequitably rich off our backs, and we are letting them do it.
Actually, we're celebrating it.
We're celebrating it.
It's not like we vilified Jeff Bezos, where we put them on pedestals and say, oh, look at these rich and powerful people and look at their lifestyles, and it's utter nonsense. There's something else I saw today. I put it on my LinkedIn feed about the carbon footprint of the most wealthy, and I'm going to say that when I say most wealthy on the planet, I am including, by and large, middle-class Americans, because if you look at how much we have wealth compared to the entire planet, and modern Europeans as well, but we'll take the billionaires for a moment. It was something effective about, I think it was like somewhere around 18 or 20% of the world's entire carbon footprint is by like the 0.1 percentile of wealthy people. That, if I'm Jeff Bezos and I got 3 yachts and 5 houses and all of this like just crap and stuff that we
Probably
don't need.
Five planes. Yeah.
It's incredibly wasteful.
And then all of his spaceships.
Incredibly wasteful.
Yeah.
And what does that do? It hurts everyone else underneath. The fires in California directly result from the greed of someone else in a different state that has all this unbelievable wealth and putting all this carbon in the atmosphere. So it all boils down to most of our problems are a class war, not a blue or red war. And unfortunately, we lean more into the blue and red at the benefit of the ultra rich.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So here's the question, Chad. How do we fix that? Starting with you and I, and then in society, how do we fix that?
Well, unfortunately, I think there's a lot of things to do now with the modern technology we have out here. We need to use this algorithm sort of not like against them, or use it to our benefit in some way, shape, or form. We've got to figure
Or
out a
don't
way.
use it. Abstain.
Yeah,
There's
I agree
power
with
in
that
not
too. I
using.
mean, yeah, that's hard though too, because there are a lot of people that, how do you put it? In order for us to fight back, people are addicted to it, and in order for us to fight back to get the messaging out, what do we suppose? How do we get the message out if we can't use, legacy media? We can't
Let me
use.
challenge that. Let me challenge
Yeah,
that. This is
yeah,
such a good segue.
yeah,
So let's talk about this from the standpoint of the I Have a Dream speech. That's one I love to
yeah,
talk about.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what ways did we have to communicate in the 60s when MLK got on the lawn and spoke? What do we have to communicate? What were our methods? Just blurt them out. But
Uh,
telephones,
yeah, we had, telephones, and then in person,
letters,
letters, books. Yeah,
newspapers.
sure, sure, sure.
But what else? Is there any other
Yeah,
way to communicate back in the 60s
yeah. But
effectively?
other than being in the same room, right? Yeah.
Despite that, why was that day filled with tens of thousands of people packing the mall without social? Why? Because
Well,
go ahead and answer it.
I could also make the argument, and you're right, and I love that, and I want you to tell me why you think it is, but I also think that back then people had a baseline of factual. So when they heard Walter Cronkite on the news, when they heard
We
Tom Brokaw,
trusted the
and
media a
they
lot more.
trusted the media,
Yes. And the
because
media
they.
was more trustworthy.
Sure, sure. Because it wasn't what you have back then, 45 minutes of news, that was it all day. And then the rest of it was all subsidized through infomercials and whatever else was on that channel. So now you have 24-hour cable news, and they have to keep eyeballs on their screen, so they have to make
Constant stream
sure
of
that
data.
they concentrated data, and they repeat themselves over and over. But what they do is they make sure that they have headlines on there that keep you satiated. So I want you to tell me what it is, but I think that our biggest problem, at least one of our biggest problems from then till now, was people understood facts. They had a base to start, and then they would start to build
The
off of. But
conspiracy theorist was less
yep,
prevalent. Maybe I'm gonna challenge that a bit, only because you think about McCarthyism and the Red Scare and all
yeah,
that.
yeah,
It
that's true. That's true.
those things absolutely still existed, and it'd be interesting to have a third person on this podcast that's 70 years old and telling us some of the wisdom of what it was like back then. But I'll
That's a good point.
I'll go back to what the hopeful part of this. So I'll talk about my daughters for a second. So I have two teen daughters, and for those of you that may not have kids or whatnot, uh, the next generation I'm extremely excited about. My kids in Seattle, first of all, they told me about the term screenagers. They are not screenagers. My youngest probably spends 2-3 hours a day crocheting. My oldest spends an hour or so. Well, she's probably about 4 hours a day reading books, just physical, actual books, and sewing. And they are not on, so they don't have Facebook, they don't have Twitter, they don't have any social media whatsoever. And when I see them on their phones, they're doing what I would have done when I was a high schooler with you and I in Norfolk, which is I would be on the phone calling my buddies, not texting, but calling my friends, and they're connecting with their friends over texting. So the most screenager thing they do is text with their friends, but that's legitimate, and they're building
Mm-hmm.
relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and that's good.
Mm-hmm.
They are not depressed with, I'll say, all of the evils and the traps of social media. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have body image issues. They're not
Mm-hmm.
worried about bullying. They're worried about normal kids stuff. And if the next generation is finally starting to wean themselves off of social media, I submit to society that can we do that across the board, because it does get us, like, I'm having so much more fun reconnecting with you. I mean, Chad reached out to me. I'm talking with him. You and I are in community more. Why? Not because we're on Facebook looking at each other's photos, but because we're talking. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing your reaction. We're having real
Mm-hmm.
human connection. And we are
Mm-hmm.
social creatures. And the way we socialize is in person. And the one thing I would say about technology that's good is we can at least do video in person. I'm in Seattle, you're in Nebraska. We can still feel like we're meeting and hanging out because we are. And that's good for our relationship, you and I, but it's good for humanity to lean into real connectedness and not the voyeurism of, oh, I know what's going on with, Mrs. Timmer, my old art teacher, because she posted 3 photos of her kids on Facebook. Well, when's the last time I had a conversation with her?
Right.
30 years ago?
Right.
Right?
Yep. It's so
and
true.
That's not real
It's
connection.
so true. Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that's how the social media got started and got sold to us as this way for us to be able to stay, connected. But it's done the complete opposite, unfortunately.
So the way to get out of this is to put the damn screens down.
Yeah.
And to call a friend, go see someone in person, have a drink, do normal human things that draw us together. Ask how someone's doing and really ask, like, how is your life? What are your challenges? And connect.
So
and
your campaign then,
it's been better.
In order for you to get your message out, then you're going to have to knock on doors, literally.
Yes, I get the opportunity to knock on 12,000
which is great.
doors.
Now, it's winter time, so I'm assuming, well, it will be winter time soon. And I know it's going to be a little bit colder and stuff. So maybe after the holidays, you'll ramp it up a little bit more, but I hear where you're going with that. I do. I just think because so many of our systems are built online now, like if you want to pay bills, rent a car, travel, things like that, you've got to do,
and there's benefits to having electronic
Yeah, there's
stuff,
benefits.
sure.
Yeah, exactly. And then us doing the podcast, like you said, I mean, there's obviously, we don't want to get rid of those things. I think what you're saying is you must be conscious of what you're doing when you're on your screen. If you're using your screen, make sure you're using it for a productive means, as opposed to, now it's nice to see grandma's photos, everyone, or, it's nice to see family members' photos, but make sure if you're going to be on social media, set a timer, because
I was about to suggest that.
It will suck you in. Now, like me, all my family, all of my, my parents live in Pennsylvania. My, cousins, I've got cousins in California. I've got her family lives in Chicago. So us using social media, we try to use it for good, but with what I do is I do a lot of marketing and content creation for.
I work online with LinkedIn. I get it. There's necessary evils for it to put the word out, but.
So, but like you said, though, it is important if we put these phones down and we stop like feeding the algorithms, it will help us. I also think dis and misinformation is something that is kind of killing us too, because if there were good information out there, then we wouldn't have this algorithmic know your sources, things like that. And I know everybody wants to.
I see a book you're holding, by the way, that I'm excited to talk about. You want to bring it up?
So I do. And so, my friend Chris here, told me that I needed to get this, and I haven't read it yet, but I read one page.
Sure. Okay.
And the one page I read, I thought was poignant, and I think it's brilliant. And I think I'm going to start, kind of living by this one statement, or at least every conversation I have, I want to live by this first statement that says, in politics, being deceived is no excuse. I think, to me, I've never heard it that way. And I think about it because, a lot of times people, if your neighbor gets robbed, you don't go over there and point the finger and say, well, you should have done better. You should have.
Say, how can I help? I'm so sorry.
Exactly. Exactly. But in politics, being deceived is no excuse. I think that is a really, really good point, because that's the one place where, when I look at MAGA, and I've got some friends that are trying to maybe leave MAGA, or maybe they're switching, or maybe they're not necessarily going to come over to where I am, but they definitely are disillusioned by the whole thing because they're starting to realize I got duped, right? Yep. I hate to say this, but I don't really empathize with that. I don't empathize with it mostly because you heard what this person was saying, you heard what they had to do, and you did it twice. Actually, you voted for him 3 times. And in the way I see it is, at this point, like I don't have I don't have a lot of empathy for that. Like, I like this line: in politics, being deceived is no excuse. You don't really have an excuse, because that's what politics is. You hear a platform, you see the politician, they tell you who they are and what they're about. You find out almost everything about them, especially in this age where, you've got past photos and
that's right.
It's all public domain. Like, you knew what this was. You knew this person was a grifter. So I don't really have a lot of empathy for you on that. But
I'm going to say this to remind myself to have empathy, and maybe challenge the listeners on whatever side of the party you're on to carry this a bit. If you think about how American politics works, and this isn't, I'll take it beyond politics. This is more of a life statement, and how energy works. Pendulum, okay? Life is always in motion. It swings, right?
Yeah.
And American politics
equal
is
and opposite reaction.
That's exactly right. It's physics. So when one party's in power for a while, people are good with it for a while, they get tired of it, and it goes the other way. And I would submit to the audience that the pendulum swings have been bigger and bigger and bigger, and it makes us more opposed, and it makes us more out of equilibrium as a society. Think about how much the pendulum was swinging, or how little it was swinging, when Obama ran against McCain. I never once said, "Oh man, McCain's a dirty son of a bitch and I hate him," and da da da. Right. No, I'm like, no. If anything, he was so respectful and honorable and civil. Yeah. He practiced civil discourse, and so did Obama. I mean, there's a reason why Obama spoke at McCain's funeral. It was on the request of the family. Yeah. You can't even. Can you imagine Joe Biden speaking at Trump's funeral?
Nope. Not even close. Not even close. Or vice versa. Or vice versa.
They mean shake hands. And that was such a wise and beautiful thing to see our leaders show society how to behave. And leadership is always top down. Yep. So what we really need in this moment, and it's to have leaders that way, but I'll submit to all of us that we all have agency. We all have leadership starting in our home. I can be a great leader as a father and a husband in my home to say, "Hey kids, this is how you treat people. Hey kids, this is how you communicate." And when I screw up, I own it, and I actually do. When I screw up, I say, I was wrong, and I tell you that, and you have humility about stuff. But start with leadership in your own home, and then with your friends. And if you've said something really hurtful, go own it. And we've all done stupid stuff, myself included, and you go own your mistakes. But that kind of leadership and empathy leads to more conversation. And I recently had a really, really, really hard and important conversation with my dad, who were completely ideologically couldn't be more opposed. We live on two different planets. We don't have a basis of truth. It hurts me on a daily basis and still does. And despite that, he, as a MAGA Republican, donated to his son's liberal campaign. I'm sure it was hard for him to do. It was hard for me to ask for that help, and he did it. Now, these were breadcrumbs. They weren't monumental, but they had more significance. And I'm saying this out loud to remind myself, empathy starts with basically one kind act at a time. There's a great movie. You seen the movie Klaus? It's a Christmas movie. Have you seen this? Klaus. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Came out a couple of years ago. And I'm stealing the line, but it's basically one kind act always sparks another. And it's like, what can we find that's common? Let's start with, we're both humans, Mr. or Mrs. Person I oppose. Okay, we're both breathing the same air. Okay, do you have a family? Cool, I have a family. And trying to find what we do have in common, and then maybe go a step further and saying, well, what are you hopeful for? Not what are you against, but what are you hopeful for? What are you excited about? What's something that inspires you? And finding a way to find some level of commonality so we can start breaking bread together again. Because if we can do that, we can heal this divide, and we will then be more worthy and deserving of leaders that reflect our society. Because now, I agree. Our leaders reflect our society, which is we all hate each other.
Right. Well, and
sparking hatred.
And the funny thing is I spent a lot of time outside today with other people. I had a shoot with a client, and there were all kinds of people around, everybody from different ideological backgrounds and stuff like that. I didn't ask, we didn't go into it, but I could just, you can kind of feel it. You kind of know where people are just based on conversation. You can kind of know.
Sure.
And it was all respectful. It was all good. It was mostly business. You know, we were just working on our project or whatever we had to do. But everybody was able to laugh with everybody. Everybody was able to hang out. And, you know, nobody was disrespectful. I actually, and I agree with you that we kind of all hate each other, but we hate each other from behind, you know, a keyboard or on social media.
Aggressive thing, 100%. Yes, and it brings our worst selves out. And I've been there myself and recently, so I get it.
I have too recently, you know, so you get into the room with people, like you were making the point, you know, Martin Luther King, why was it so effective? There were millions of people, you know, the Million Man March, and you've got all these people and they're gathered in this place to hear this speech. Chances are we'll never have a moment like that ever again, where that many people are in one place to hear somebody, you know, speak. I would like to think that there are, you know, obviously the No Kings rally was great. You know, over the country, or around the country, having 7 million people plus out, you know, protesting. But we need more of those. And instead of it being a protest, it needs to be a celebration. And I do think that the Kings rally, the one that I was here in Omaha, the one I went to, was a celebration. There was a lot of happy, cheerful people. I only saw one person. Now, I didn't hear what this person was saying, but I saw a white male carrying an AR-15, you know, across, you know, it
threatening people.
Wasn't,
just by his
finger
presence.
wasn't on the trigger, but it was just walking through the crowd slowly, just kind of laughing at people. And it was intimidation. But you know what? That person was maybe the person I saw, and I have him on tape. Not that I was filming him on purpose, but he wasn't there very long. And the people didn't heckle him. They just left him alone. They let him do his thing. And then the people went and cheered and celebrated. And I believe that person was not there very long. I think
you don't
realized
give oxygen to the room. You take the oxygen out.
I think that person realized this is not a good place for me to be right now, and decided, you know, to leave it all, which good on that person to make that decision to leave, and also good on the people at the protest to not give that person oxygen. So right. I was a little worried when I saw that, but I also thought to myself, I think it's going to be okay. I think people are going to do the right thing, you know. And there was some security, and there were some, you know, armed police and security and stuff, and I think they were keeping the peace for the most part. I didn't see anybody throwing anything, getting mad. There were some,
it's a lot harder to scream at someone in person than it is behind a keyboard, right?
No question. And I just think that I'm really proud of you that you're out there doing the thing, because I want to do my part. I don't know if I'm in a position yet right now. I've got a 2.5-year-old, and you know, and my wife's a teacher, so I always worry about her going to school, being out in public. If I were to put myself out there public facing and start to, you know, either run for state senate or run for the state house, or do any type of, you know, politicking, or even turn my podcast into a forum for that.
Sure.
I do have reservations, because I do believe that there is some political violence out there where people have decided they don't want to silence you with intellect. They want to silence you like with violence. And it can be scary out there. And I don't want to put my family through that, but at the same time, I don't want to live scared either.
So what I would submit, and this is how I got started, I was not intending to run for office this year. I was intending to support someone else that does. And it turned into, no, Chris, I want you to run. My state representative asked me to serve, and I'm honored to do so. And I was thinking about these kinds of things, but it was the step I needed, that someone else saw that in me, so I could be bold enough to do this and have a great mentor. But my point is, if anyone out there, if you're lacking hope, inspiration, you know, challenged, going through challenge times, go get activated in any way. Help someone else's campaign. Volunteer at a food shelter. You know, I volunteered at an African-American women-led organization that helps minority girls with career opportunity, because I'm a career person. That gave me tons of fulfillment and open doors and opportunities. And I didn't do it for the opportunities part. I did it because it made me feel good to serve others. So I would say, if we can find something that lights you up, you know, maybe it's you, Chad, maybe you're bringing out stories where you say, you know what, I'm going to bring out the heroes of our community, and shift my podcast into the homeless shelter that's housing people, the the BIPOC community that's led by a Native American that's helping with environmentalism. Who knows? But bringing good stories to light and living in the light, it's almost a selfish thing because it makes you feel good, and it's these behaviors lead to other good behaviors, and surround yourself with good people. And so I would challenge anyone listening that, if you're upset at life, if you're frustrated, start with, who do you spend the most time with? And I would say, starting with Chad, I'm very, very, very proud of my friends because they're good humans and ultimately, right, and want to be good. And that helps me be better, right? So surround yourself with goodness and then go live in it.
I love that, Chris, and I appreciate your time. And I know we're a little over time, but I wanted to bring this up again. Tell me why this book. Now, I haven't had a chance to read it. This is on my weekend list. I'm going to read it. I'm sure I'll get through it this weekend.
You'll power through it. A couple hours.
Tell me why you suggested this for me, and what, you don't have to give everything away, but just what did it do for you?
The Cliff Notes. Yeah. Well, I'll start with the most interesting thing. It was given to me by my Christian pastor, not a politician. So I go to a liberal Lutheran church in Seattle. I trust my pastor like a second father. And he's been giving this book to a number of people that have been dark and depressed with our politics. He said, Chris, go read it. And so the whole premise of this book, it's 20 lessons from the 20th century. It refers to Hitler a lot and fascism as a concept. I would invite everyone to not read about, Antifa and all this stuff online. Read that book. Have an academic understanding, not a social media understanding that's been perverted on what fascism is by definition. And the whole tenet of fascism is to be ignorant, to be exceptionally loyal to one human, and what they say is basically God. Think about how ridiculous that sounds when I say that. And so, and by the way, you do not question authority. Because what it allows people to do then is, when Nazi Germans were finally totally indoctrinated, it allowed the Nazi Germany movement to look at a Jewish person and not see a human anymore and see a villain, and go kill him. There's a lot of echoes from history that can be learned in our current part. So I would invite you, regardless of political affiliation, be educated on history, on definition of words. And then more importantly, and what I love about this book, it's a field guide on how to be a good human right now, how to be activated in a civil, respectful, and morally congruent way. And the nugget I'll end with is I think it's chapter 4 or 5, where it says, consider running for local politics. You don't like the world you see, go make a positive difference in it. Go be a leader. I mean, if the last 10 years teach us anything, anyone can become a leader and be president. Anyone, even a 10-time bankrupt billionaire, can become president. I mean, doesn't take a lot of credentials beyond, wanting to do it and being aged, 35, I believe. So
35 and being born here. Yeah,
that's right. So read the book, learn something, and then think about, well, how can I get activated? And it inspired me to act, and more importantly, act in goodness.
Yeah, I love it, Chris. I appreciate you, doing what you're doing, because I know that you are the type of people we need more of that are willing to do that. Now, I know it can be hard for people that, work several jobs and don't have the means, or maybe don't have a second income or whatever it is. Sure. And I get it, but the message that you just said right there, and what this book talks about is, taking responsibility for the moment that you're in, and then go and act on those things. Go do those things. Right. Now, there's some people that would say that MAGA's doing that. They're like, hey, we see this thing, we like it a certain way, we're going to go this other way. So if you don't like that,
I give the MAGA party credit for being very organized. There's no doubt it's very organized. I don't agree with any of the policy, but it's very organized.
Well, they're very organized at wrecking things. Like, I don't necessarily think that it's an organization run or it's organized by a bunch of I'm sorry to say
We can
this,
go
but
down
they're
a
useful
rabbit hole
idiots.
of Project 2025, but that's a whole other hour-long
Right,
conversation.
right, no, right. But I don't necessarily think that is MAGA. MAGA is the useful idiots that let them into power. The Project 2025, I think, is completely different. I think that's a whole nother thing. Now, it was propped up, and now it's on the shoulders of
Born out of it.
Right. It was born out of MAGA, and
So let me
MAGA
flip
is
this on its
this.
head before you keep going. How cool would it be if people like you and I and others decide, let's form a goodness movement, right?
Yeah,
A goodness movement, and said, what are the tenets or values of goodness that we want to map out?
yeah,
And it could be things like social safety nets. It could be things like, let's have,
yeah,
neighborhood potlucks. I mean, anything that's from simple to bigger and strategic, and say, okay, now if this is what a goodness framework looks like, how can we enact that in our daily lives and make a political and humanistic
yeah,
movement
yeah.
that removes party affiliation, but then has its own. I
Right.
mean, that's how
Yeah,
people should be thinking right now. How can we
I
how can
I
we have more
agree
of a
with you.
goodness movement?
Well, and to that point, I think you made a really good, pivot there where we were kind of going down this rabbit hole of running against something. We have to be for something. People are
A
seeing
thousand
through.
percent. Ciento
People
por
are
ciento.
seeing through the running against something. Now, you can in your heart still feel okay. We have to go at this thing, but you have to go at it with better ideas. And
Yes.
and I do think that the
That help
Democratic
people.
Party has had better ideas. The problem is they have not been very good at number one messaging or implementing them. And I
It's
do
about
believe
follow
they're
through and accountability. That's right.
100%. And I think what happens is they can win an election, then they get there and they find out how messy politics is in Washington and how you have to be lobbied and you've got to win your next election. In order to win the next election, you've got to get all this money and you've got to run and
The system itself is
the
inherently
system.
broken. I mean, Bernie and
Yep,
AOC, talk about this a lot, but
yep, yep, yep.
yeah, it comes down to having maybe it's just having a very, like, I can hear my wife saying this, have one wildly important goal. Let's get one good thing done. You get that thing done, and it might just be lowering food costs, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now let's go do another
Right.
good thing, but
Right.
really tackle one big issue at a time and
100%.
succeed, and that builds
Yep.
trust. And that's not a political statement, that's just life.
It's just like that, but that's how we do it in our everyday life. We've got
That's
one
right.
big job to do. I can bring it on a lower level and say, I've got to get the floor mopped. So we got to go fill up the water, get the hot water, get the soap, get the mop, and do it. Then I got to go tackle another job. That's a
That's right.
small, that's the small scope of what you're saying, but that's where I think that Mamdani did a really good job of just staying
Did a
on message
great
and doing the
job
thing, and he
campaigning on
gave a
that.
blueprint for the
And now he's got to
future.
follow through on his promises, and that'll
Now,
be the checks and balances.
here's the
Yep.
thing. He won't accomplish all of them, but what I love is that he shot the moon and said, "I'm going to do it all." And what I think people heard was at least he's speaking about me. He's talking about me. And
The
I'll take
everyday
that.
person.
If he only gets the buses and he gets, and he only gets the buses,
Then New York
I'll
City's
take
better
it.
for it.
New York City's better for it. But what I really think is going to happen is people are going to galvanize. If he can get the buses and he can get the childcare, I think people are going to go, okay, what else can we do? And then they'll rally behind it.
That's right.
And I just hope some bad actor doesn't do something stupid to derail it. In other words, like do some violent thing and that derails the whole thing. I really hope that doesn't happen, because if it does, that could make things really hard for him, because he'll have to clean up that mess, right? He'll have to clean up that mess from that, and then people will be scared, and then they won't want to galvanize. They won't want to do the work. And so I just hope that doesn't happen. But I've kept you
hopeful
too
and
long,
positive.
and I could talk to you forever and ever. And I think that I have a million more
Same.
questions. But before you go, I want you to
Sure.
tell people where they can find you, support you, follow your platform, and then
Sure.
also I want you to tell people. You kind of mentioned it, but how they, in their own, how can they start if they're inspired by this and they want to run?
Yeah.
What is
Great
the first
question.
step? Like, what was
Great
your first
question.
step? What
Okay,
was
so
the first step for you?
yeah, first step for me, this is the funniest, easiest one. Go visit your state capitals. My family and I can tell you this, we're on a quest to see all 50 state capitals. It's free art, free history. I can almost guarantee you, because every one of the 15 or so we've seen so far, there will be state representatives or senators or at least people in staff walking the halls. And if you engage with them as a human, they're happy to show you their house. So I went to Wyoming. It's like, oh, show me your house, right? Show me the Capitol. I'm like, oh, let me show you. Where are you guys from? They go excited.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I'm very blue as a political. They're very red as politicals. And we were breaking bread over how cool is this art of the first ever United States governess was in Wyoming. Here's a painting of her, right? So go learn about history. Go to the states and learn about what they're proud of. Every state is proud of their house, their Capitol building. So that just gives you kind of a more appreciation for how beautifully diverse and different our country is, and that every state has got something it brings that they're proud of. So start with that, and then whatever brings you joy. You're a musician, you're a writer, you're a coach, whatever. I would challenge you to look at your community and find there's always room for volunteers, guys. Just in the last few years, I was on the board for that Kitty Hall Foundation, got involved with PNW Climate Week. And I'm a leader for them now. I got involved with my church, my university, every one of these things. You could say they're accidental that I got on boards and all these things, but what was not accidental is I left my front door and I made it a point to engage in a community that I want to be a part of. And if you do that and you just put yourself out there, I promise you, leadership opportunities will arise from volunteerism, and that's what's given me the courage and strength, and actually the chutzpah to say, yeah, I'm ready to be a state representative. And I look back at my life so far, I've done a lot of really good things for my community. I've earned this, right to be able to run. So get involved, period. Find your joy and then go live in it. Get out of your house.
I love that. I love that. That's great advice, and I think that's another reason why I wanted to reach out to you, because I feel like this is an opportunity for me. I'm learning kind of what it might be like if I were to put my hat in the ring, or just spend more time talking to people on here and using some of the gifts that I have. Right, start small and then just have conversations. Now, did you have to go to the Seattle.gov or Washington.gov and sign up? Like what would your next step be?
See, the process of it. So first of all, the website, if you guys would check it out, is buildwithbloomquist.com. That's my campaign site, buildwithbloomquist.com. Yeah. You're on the right site when you see my little Lego avatar waving at you for my little logo. I just had fun with it. But no, the act of running for office is actually pretty straightforward. It's no different than me founding two businesses. First, you say you want to do it, and then you go do it. You start Googling and say, okay, I have to file some paperwork and this and that. But it's not a heavy lift, guys. I would say more importantly, though, when you do any of these ventures, I'll give a nugget of wisdom I got from one of my first supervisors in recruitment, Megan Slabinski, who, funny enough, I'm going to be seeing in 2 weeks. I haven't seen her in 10 years. She said, Chris, I asked her, I said, how do I know I'm ready to be a supervisor? I've been a recruiter for 4 years. It's like when you can look at the person across from you that's your boss and realize I could do their job as good or better. That's how you know you're ready. And when I look at local politicians I've met and all this and think, gosh, you know what? What do they have that I don't? Like, nothing really. Like, I'm ready, and I have community. I have good moral compass. I've got conviction. I'm really comfortable with public speaking. So I looked and said, no, I'm qualified to do that. I could be Lauren Davis. I haven't done it yet, but I know I could, right? Sure. That's how you know you're ready for that step, is when you look at someone else and how they do it and say, I could bring something different or new, but I could do it as good or better. That's how you know.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I think a lot of people get scared. They're like, what do I do? And
take the first step. That's what you do.
Take the first step. Yeah, 100%. We're all just people. And I guess, lastly, we didn't spend a lot of time, like, so what is it you do for a living? Can you tell us about that? Like, what do you do for work? Yeah.
So it'll be my 18th year in January doing recruitment. I've been focused on technology recruitment, but I've pivoted in the last few years based on my belief system and the need to pivot into environmental and climate recruitment, where I'm powering the green economy one job at a time. We just placed a wind turbine technician in Minnesota. We're working on some green jobs for Nucor Steel, which is the largest recycler of any product. But yeah, I like trying to get people in the green economy. And whether you believe in being a strong environmentalist or not, I'll just tell you that is one of the biggest areas of economic growth, is the transition to green energy and the green economy. So you don't even have to believe in it like I do. It's just good business. It's about innovation. It's about doing things more efficiently. It's about being less consumers and more good stewards of our earth. And anyone that thinks that nature isn't a part of our economy is nuts, because all of our products start with a nature-based product.
100%.
A tree,
all these minerals, to make batteries, all the stuff to, back in the day it was trees to make paper, so you could write books or do whatever, and now it's these minerals that we get from abroad or from the ground that make our batteries.
Innovation's happening too. Now we're making plastic out of seaweed. We're making we're using nature-based solutions, a lot more of our products, to everyone's benefit, starting with the environment. So that's what I do. It's a lot of fun, and there's nothing better than telling someone you got the job.
I love that. Yeah. Listen, I can't thank you enough for coming on here, and we'll have to do it again as things get closer to, maybe in, another quarter, or maybe the second quarter of next year, something like that. We'll have to, but we'll stay in touch here on. Listen, I would love to help you, make some content for you, and maybe make a little ad or commercial for your campaign. I would love to help out any way that I can, because, I'm not a rich man, but I've got a few talents, and I got some things that I could put together for you. So I would love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we'll just have to stay in touch and make sure anytime you've got a message you want to get out to the world. I don't have a huge following, but it's growing, and I'm hoping that people like you and others, and the next time, if there are any representatives out there, for the next that are running with you in different districts or for different things, feel free to have them on, and we can have a conversation, and hopefully kind of build from there. That'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, we have to get in the same room one of these days, real soon.
We will sooner than later, Chad.